I mean, the Bronx deserves to have these kind of entities in it, you know what I mean? We've tried to increase tourism to the Bronx in the last 12 years, bring people up to where the birthplace of hip hop. Yeah. Okay, this is hip hop, and it started right here.
Hip hop didn't come out of nowhere. It's jazz, funk, soul, and a whole lot of lived experience flipped into something new.
But the dance, the art, and the spoken word.
All over the world.
All over the world,
I'll tell you,
exactly.
when I was in college, we did this project, and this Chinese lady got up there, and she played a beat. She said, this is part of my project. And it was about culture all over the world. And this beat was playing, everybody was whopping their necks in the classroom. And then all of a sudden, the guy came in and started rapping. But he was rapping in Chinese. I said, oh, this thing has moved all over the world.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's not just here in the Bronx and, you know, in the U.S. It's all over the world
It's
now.
a multicultural world phenomenon,
Yeah.
okay, that it kind of rivals the internet as far as its influence on the planet in the last 40 years.
In this video, I'm breaking down how those roots shaped the culture, how sampling became the bridge, and how all that shows up in my own beats. Today, any kid with a laptop can reach the world. DAWs, plugins, and distribution platforms change the game. But the why behind the sound, that's still history, theory, rhythm, groove, chords, melody, and sampling, tying it all together. This project connects the dots from jazz improvisation, funk groove, to soul emotion, and shows how I turn those ideas into tracks.
Created a musical landscape in the 70s and early 80s by giving New York or the Bronx, especially the Bronx, a musical foundation or a new start, because we were just coming off the 60s where the entire city was bankrupt. That environment kind of gave birth to hip hop. Hip hop is a culture based on 4 foundational elements: DJing, MCing or rap, graffiti, and breakdance.
People use the terms interchangeably, rap with hip hop, whereas hip hop is the bigger culture. Rap is something you do. Hip hop is something you live.
Hip hop starts as a culture, DJing.
Turntables became our instruments. Like, so a lot of people in the inner cities, they didn't have money for instruments. So you had to find those sounds somewhere. So you dug through your Pop's Cradle records and you just listening for these different instruments and sounds. And then you pulled from those different sounds and made a total new creation. People forget that the DJ is the backbone of hip hop. That's where it all started.
MCing.
And then there was different parts of the record where you could talk over it and then the beat's still going, but you don't lose the attention of the record or the main part of the record. That evolved to MCs getting on the mic and just saying things to keep the party going.
Breaking.
B-boy, B-girl comes from Kuhert. B meaning break. Okay, break boy. You dance on the break. That's it.
It all ties into dancing and really going off during the break beat of a song at a party back in the day.
Graffiti.
The connection between hip hop and graffiti is an urban thing. Though it was here before the actual rest of the elements of the culture, the people involved in graffiti were directly involved in hip hop as well.
And knowledge of self. Born in the South Bronx, late 70s, parties, block parties, 2 turntables, 1 vision, make the crowd move. It came from struggle, poverty, discrimination, and flip pain into expression. That's why the music still hits rhythm and truth. Sampling is the glue. DJs loop break beats so MCs can rhyme. Then tech evolved. Samplers, drum machines, DAWs. From early tape experiments to the Mellotron to the SP1200, all roads lead to the modern workstation. The idea stays the same. Borrow a piece, transform it, and make it new.
The kind of records that I do, you can't just cookie cut and throw out. You know what I mean? Like, it takes time. Like, I may come up with the basic groove, the groove of the record in 5-10 minutes, but then I might be working on it for a week, you know, to get it to where it's at.
Here in Ableton, you'll see how I transform this track from a sample into something creative and new. I took this track and here is the original. So the original track here is in C minor. So in C minor, it has a darker feel. This dark feel wasn't what I was looking for with this track exactly. So I wanted to make it a little happier. So what I did is I transposed it up 8 semitones, which put it in the same key of C minor, but it made it sound just a tad bit happier. Check it out. So after that, I was like, I'm not feeling this. So I chopped it up again, and then I came up with this, which is totally different. Check this out. I pitched up this sample, carved out some of the frequencies, sidechained it under the kick. Same tradition, new tools. Jazz is freedom and harmony. 2-5-1 moves, extended chords, swing.
There's one hip-hop producer in particular that left a massive impact, J Dilla.
I think just mainly like just Dilla, the way he heard rhythm, like syncopation, melody, harmony, chords. A lot of that stuff was like heavily influenced from like Herbie Hancock. Yes. You know, he embellished on those ideas and it just kept elevating him to use the whole fusion of that stuff by the time he made it to Welcome to Detroit. It was like another level of
Early hip hop pulled from jazz records, and the conversation kept going. A Tribe Called Quest, Gangstar, Jazz Mataz. In my work, I use those same colors, 17ths, 9ths, Dorian flavor, and let the drums modernize the feel. This is very interesting how I created this 2-5-1 chord progression.
So we're going to start by constructing a 2-5-1 progression in a couple of different keys and actually seeing where they fit in the scale and why is it called a 2-5-1? Because a lot of people just get confused. They go, what does 2-5-1 actually mean? So if I'm in C major, you'll notice I have the notes in my scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then the octave. Now if I turn all of those notes in the scale into the 7 primary chords of that scale, there are my chords. I have chords 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. So chords 2 is here, this is our 2, 5, 1. So that's a 2-5-1 progression in its most rawest triadic form. Really, there's a really deeper, important musical point about this, because all music we listen to, all Western music that's tonal, has this function to it. We have a chord that starts us here, the 2. Now this is a minor chord, in this case it's a D minor, chord 2 is always minor. So we have our minor chord here that prepares us for the next chord, which is the dominant chord, chord 5, and the dominant chord then resolves to chord 1. And we have a sense of resolution. So we have this chord 2 is a dominant preparation chord. It's a chord that's preparing us for the dominant chord. We land on the dominant chord, and then the dominant chord leads us to the tonic, chord 1, the first chord. It's a bit like a musical story in a way. We have a chord that leads us to a pivotal point here, which brings us to an inevitable resolution.
I originally made this in a Dorian D minor scale. I found the sample. And when I transposed it, it was in C major. But the crazy thing about C major in this sample is that it landed exactly on a 2-5-1 chord progression, and it fit in wonderfully. This is classic jazz movement, but I glue it with hip hop swing and sidechain so it breathes. Funk put the groove at the center. Lock on the one. Keep the pocket tight.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson, your host. A new documentary titled We Want the Funk debuts on Independent Lens here on PBS on April 8th at 9 p.m. Now, the film by director Stanley Nelson chronicles the history and influence of funk music and features legends such as James Brown, George Clinton, and David Bowie. It also examines the relationship between funk music and the political and racial dynamics in 1970s America. Here's a preview.
2, 3, and James Brown, George Clinton, Blood Family Stone. Funk is something that takes you over.
A history that goes back to the spiritual.
Funk got the whole world dancing. You certainly couldn't contain it culturally, and you couldn't contain it geographically either.
Funk is the DNA for hip hop. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da, lose yourself in it, and that was the thing.
syncopated bass, ghost note snares, busy hats. That energy is the backbone of so many hip-hop drums.
Off rhythms, it's like syncopation is more the thing. They call them ghost notes. It's notes that's not there, but I put them there. I came up with that out of the blue, so it's my idea of how I feel the funk should be.
But it's crazy. For this track, I used a funky guitar. This guitar was so funky and syncopated. I cut the sample, I found my loop, and I ran it. And the drums sit so nice on top. Soul is the heart, gospel roots, joy, and pain in the same
Hill
heart.
and Wyclef Jean ended their tumultuous relationship. The Fugees broke up and Miss Hill went solo.
An early 20-something-year-old Miss Hill started cracking the early parts of an album in her living room in her hometown, South Orange, New Jersey.
Her label reportedly wanted her to release another album with the Fugees, but Miss Hill forged ahead by recruiting her own team to help her achieve her vision.
She told Rolling Stone, "I wanted to write songs that lyrically move me and have the integrity of reggae and the knock of hip-hop and the instrumentation of classic soul."
Producers leaned into that. Flip a phrase and constant feeling comes through.
This sound would also help pave the way for neo-soul music alongside the artistry of Erykah Badu, Floetry, and Jill Scott. You can hear Miss Hill's Motown soul influence in songs like Doo-Wop That Thing.
I'm not just filling space with this sample. I'm carrying emotion forward so the track feels human. Old tools, turntables, SP1200s, MPCs, new tools, Ableton, plus the Push 3. The mission hasn't changed, only the flexibility. Right now, we're gonna hop into Pro Tools and I'm gonna show you how technology has changed the game. In this, I'm gonna show you some drum bus mixing techniques through technology. So, when you're in Pro Tools, it's all about routing. So I'm gonna route my drums to a bus. A bus is also known as an auxiliary track. This auxiliary track is not a different track. The signal that you're hearing, the drums is concerned, is one signal getting sent to a different track. On this track, you get to see how with technology, I can put saturation. I can sidechain my kick to my 808. This is awesome because before we had to use hardware, but now we could do it. They call it all in the box. that's all on the computer. With push, chords can be improvised, chopped, performed, and ideas captured quick, faster workflow, same foundation.
Let's go ahead and explore the changes to expressive chords. So you might notice this new little green area right here. Well, essentially what this does is this allows you to train expressive chords with whatever chords you want. If I click Learn, I can choose. So what's awesome about this is I can see the notes as I'm putting them in, right? And it is an F minor 7. And so now whenever I play this chord bank, I'm going to get that new chord that I put in there. And so another thing I can do is I can transpose a chord. So I like that second chord, maybe this third chord. I've transposed it up to a C sharp. So now I could play. Maybe that's my new part.
Rhythm is the heartbeat. Clave, Tracio. Swing.
Notice the difference between drums that are played straight and drums that are played swung.
They all show up across genres and give hip-hop its bounce. Polyrhythms and polymeters add surprise and tension.
Polyrhythm is the superposition of two rhythms that don't have the same number of beats, but are of the same duration. For example, in a bar of 4/4, which is 4 beats long, you could have 3 triplets half notes over 4 quarter notes. Then you have a polyrhythm of 3/4. The same duration, the bar of 4/4, is divided in 3 by the triplets and by 4 by the quarter notes. Here is what it sounds like. In the same way, you could make other polyrhythms, like 5/4 or 7/5 for instance. As long as the two rhythms that are layered fill the same amount of time, usually 1 bar, it will be a polyrhythm. If I talk about polyrhythms, I also have to talk about polymeter. A polymeter is the superposition of two time signatures that don't have the same number of beats per bar, so their bars would be of different length. Combining two rhythms that are not of the same length will mean that the more their patterns repeat, the more offset they'll become, even though each of their subdivisions can be of the same duration. Let's have a look at this to see what I mean. This is a 3/4 over 4/4 polymeter. We'll have a bar of 3/4, so we'll play the first note and leave the two other silent. That will be our pattern that will then be repeated. That will make 1 E-A, 2 E-A, 3 E-A, 4 E-A. And with the bar of 4/4, we'll play the first one and leave the 3 other silents. That will make 1 E and the 2 E and the 3 E and the. So now if we layer these bars on top of each other, every quarter note will be of the same length and both rhythms will start on the same beat. But as you can see, the hits offset over time. Because it's a 3/4 over 4/4 polymeter, the two patterns will resynchronize again after 3 loops of the 4/4 patterns or 4 loops of the 3/4 patterns. And this polymeter will play like this. You can notice how this polymeter of 3/4 over 4/4 is similar to the polyrhythm of 3 over 4. They sound identical but at different speeds. And that is because their ratio is the same, it's 3:4, and that's probably the most important part, but we'll get back to it. So to sum it up, a polyrhythm is one length of time, usually a bar, divided in 2 different ways, so the notes won't have the same length in the 2 rhythms. And a polymeter is 2 rhythms built around the same type of notes, so the total length of the 2 rhythms are different.
Flow rides on top. Beat placement, rhyme, density, accents. Change the flow. Change the section. That's how MCs shape, form, and rhythm. Hip-hop is memory and innovation at the same time. Jazz gave improvisation. Funk gave groove. Soul gave emotion. And sampling made it all talk to each other. My goal is to honor that lineage while pushing forward with my personal sound. I'm Michael Wright. This is my capstone on the evolution of hip-hop and the creative process behind it. Thanks for watching. Beat tape, full project details are coming. If this resonated, like, comment, and share with somebody who loves the culture.